Oh, it is now recording. So first off, like I said, we're going to run through two scripts tonight. One being both of them being kind of three-dimensional in nature. One is kind of manipulating a 3D object, creating a 3D object and then manipulating it and pulling some things out of it will create a quick twisting tower. And then the second one will use some tools inside of Grasshopper to create kind of a shell with a space frame type construction. So I will show you both of those, and we can, both of them have value, and you'll see why. So I'm going to start a new one here. So first one we'll do is the twisting tower. It is a pretty simple, relatively simple script, but can do something, something complex that might take you a lot longer to model in Rhino. Maybe not, but the benefit of this is that it's more manipulating. You can manipulate it more. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a plane to the surface here, to the ground plane. I'm going to put a number slider in here so I can manipulate its size. I'm going to change it to integers, make it 100 max, hit OK. And I'll plug this into the, maybe 100 is a little much, but we're making a square tower, right? So anybody have an idea of what the next, so if I wanted to make this into a tower shape, what I might want to do next here? Nobody?
Extrude?
Yeah, someone said it. So I'm going to extrude. I will take the plane, the base. I need to put in a direction. So it is, I need to tell it where to extrude, what direction I want to extrude. And what tells us direction? Do we remember what tells us a direction in Grasshopper?
Vector.
Yeah, vector, love it. So we're going to extrude this up. I'm going to go in this, so I'm going to use a Z vector, go in the Z direction. I'm going to add another number slider to the factor here so I can tell it how tall I want this tower to be. So I can extrude up as such. I'll make this 200 so I can go a little bit, make it more tower-like. Awesome. So I can change its size. I can change its height dynamically. So perfect. So what I'm going to do next is, like I said, we're going to create a twisting tower. So we're going to twist this shape. Anybody have an idea of what the node might be called to do that?
Twist.
Yeah, twist. There's a twist node, which twists geometry, which is very convenient. So we have a bunch of different connectors for this node. We're not going to use all of them. Now, obviously, the first one is geometry. The second one is axis, on which it twists. The angle in which it's twisting. Infinite, which, if true, the deformation is constant throughout the object. We won't need to plug anything. We could plug something into this, but this is if the axis is shorter than the object, but our axis won't be. And rigid, which makes sure that the geometry will not be deformed. So we need to worry about the top three. So obviously our geometry is our square or our tower that we've built. Anybody have an idea on how we might get an axis? So we want this thing to rotate on its center. How might we get the axis of this from this object so that it's dynamic, so that it changes with the object?
Could you divide the plane?
Divide the plane. The base plane, like this plane here. You could actually, what we could do, this wasn't what I was going to do, but let me think here. Where am Blah, 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 blah. Analysis. Point in. So what we could potentially do is we can find the UV value of the center of that square, which I believe we can use this node to achieve that. Does anybody know? So I need to plug in the surface and then tell it where the, so if I hover over this, it says UV coordinate to evaluate. Any idea what we would need to plug into here to get the center of that square? So UV values are, this may or may not be what you were thinking of, Nick, but this is where my mind took me. We'll do it another way here in a second. But UV values, like I said, they are the points that are on a surface. So they go from 0 to 1. So the starting point of that surface is 0, 0. The ending point of that surface is 1, 1. So what point would need to be in the middle? What number two numbers would we need to get in the center, do you think?
0.5 and 0.5.
Boom, there he is. So we don't want an integer. We want a number. I will set this number to 0.5. And I need to make a point, actually. So I need to create a UV point. So let me go see about that. UV point. I might be. Let's see here. I thought I could just plug that in, but that's not going to be what I want. Yeah, that's what I thought. So it wants point UV. Maybe we could take a point here, plug this in. That's not what it's not going to work. I could create a point. How do I create a UV point? I may have to bail on this so we can get through it, but how do I? Sorry. Construct a vector, rotate. Okay, maybe I won't be able to do this the way I thought. I mean, there's definitely a way to do it. So I'm not sure how to get it right off. There's definitely a way. I assume there's a way to pull a single UV point off of a surface, but I don't see closest point, surface, closest point, point and B reps. Well, I don't maybe can do this. Nope, that's not what I want either. All right, well, not sure how to do that, but what I was trying to do was get that would be the point. You know, I could pull this, I could pull these points out or these points out and find that singular point in there. That's probably that one. But the easiest way to do this, the way I was thinking of doing it, sorry for the derailment, was taking the area command, which I told a few of you to use, and the area command pumps out the center of a piece of geometry. So if I plug in this plane into this geometry node or area node, you can see that it pops out that center point directly, the centroid of that area. So now I need to get the axis out of that. So how do an axis, this is looking for a line. So you can see empty line parameter. So what might I do to make this into a line?
Extrude the centroid.
Extrude the centroids. Kind of, yeah. I mean, I'm going to
Like
create.
extrude the point.
I'm not going to necessarily extrude the point. It maybe is the incorrect term, but
Okay.
the thought process is correct. I'm going to create a line out of it. So this line here has is SDL or line SDL, which is a start, direction, and length. So if I plug the centroid into the start, you can see that I have a little mini line there, but I want this line to extend all the way through the height of my my whole object here. So I'm going to also plug in the same length as the height of the tower itself. So as this changes, the line changes with it. And as this changes, the line moves to always stays in the center of that geometry. So now that I have the axis there, I can plug the axis in. So as you can see, I'm going to unpreview this. I'm already getting a twist out of that, which, you know, maybe that's exactly what you want, is a twist like that. But we also can modify that twist a little bit. So by adding in the angle. So if I hover over here and you see the angle is in the angle is in radians, right? I'm sure if you took calculus or geometry or whatever trigonometry, I guess it would be trigonometry. You talk about radians, and I wish I could tell you define what a radian is. All I know is it's a different version of degrees and it relates to pi. If somebody knows, feel free to tell everybody. But so what we need to do is plug radians in there. So there is this radians command, which converts degrees into radians. So if I get my degrees here and I get a number slider, and I make it a whole number and go to 360, which is 360 degrees, I can plug this into the radians and plug this into the angle. And you can see that I get different kinds of twists, all the way from 0 to 360 degrees. And I can decide where I want that twist to be. Maybe it's something like this. But, I can play with that as I want. And as I, everything in Rhino, if I change this or adjust this, it just shifts with that surface or with that tower. So this might be exactly what you want. You might come in here, you might bake this and say, ta-da, I have the tower that I wanted. That's exactly what I want, this kind of surface. And maybe that's it. Maybe that's the end of your definition. But there's 1,000 ways this definition could go. I'm just going to take it one way, just to show that, and I'm sure you all kind of know this or intuit it, that sometimes in Grasshopper you're creating things and then manipulating things. So you're all of those things. If I unhide all of this, all of that stuff exists in here still. All the different shapes, the original plane on the ground, the straight extrusion, the center point, the line, and this final twisted shape. All of them still exist in here. I have to create them all and manipulate them all. You're kind of creating the object and then manipulating it. And that's why we use the preview and unpreview, because we don't want to see, we may not want to see all of those things. So I can hover over everything. I can middle click and unpreview everything and just see that final shape. So basically what I'm saying is, you're creating multiple things. You're creating something, manipulating it, and getting something out of it. You're putting in an input, you're processing that thing, and then you get an output, as we were talking about with our projects. So just to manipulate this even one step further, just for fun, we will add some contours to this to pull out all the different shapes of this along the whole length. If I go into, there's a contour similar to your, contours in Grasshopper. There is a contour node, which has shape, plane, offsets, and distances. So we can start to take this geometry and take cuts of it at different heights, right? So if I come in here, I plug in, obviously shape would be the shape that we're trying to contour. The plane is already, don't need to put anything in there. If we wanted to cut it in a different direction, you know, the XY direction or the YZ direction or the XZ direction, we could plug in a different plane here, but as you can see, it's already XY. I'm going to just cut it from top to bottom. Contour offset from base, and then the distances. So I need to plug in some numbers into here, which I will just use another number slider so that this can be manipulated. I'm just going to turn this down a little bit to say 50. I can plug this into distances. I can plug this into here. Actually, this might not be the right. Is this the right one? Hold on a second. Did I grab the wrong contour? That's what I wanted. Probably just had it too high. What did I do? Plane. I think I grabbed the wrong one. That's what I want. I'm not sure. Distances. What did I screw up? Oh, yeah, I did grab the wrong one. This is the one I wanted. Yeah, that's the one I wanted. Grab the wrong. I'm not sure what this one is just the single, I guess the single, I'm not sure what this one's for. Contour as tree resulting in group bisection. Okay, that's not what we want. We want this one. So let me try that again. Shape, point is where it's starting. The direction is the direction it's going in. It's already going to go in the Z direction because you can see it says 0, 0, 1. So that's X, Y, Z. So the 1 is in the Z position. So I don't even need this slider here. I can just plug this distance slider in and I can start to get cuts at various heights along the length of this tower. If I unpreview that, you can see that I now have all these different section cuts through that tower, and as you know, as everything in Grasshopper, as this changes or this changes, it's a little slow because there's a lot of them. Let me turn this up a little bit so it's not so many. We get you know, various amounts of, you know, it changes with the script. I could even still change the amount that it's rotating still. So the last thing we'll do just for, just to kind of get another shape out of this is we can extrude these, you know, these are just curves. So we could take these contours, pick them as our base, and then we can give it a direction, which we already talked about what direction was. So I can I just copy and paste this Z factor here. I'm going to unplug it from there, plug in the Z direction, and then I could even match it to this distance. So that way we know that they're all touching because each cut right now is 9, let's say that's 9 feet between each other. If I plug this into there, I start to get them, you know, they're all exactly this, you know, they're all touching each other. I will add a little bit more. I'll turn this down a little bit just to get a few more in there. There we go. And if you wanted to, you could cap this so you get the shape, a box shape. I'll hide all of these, and I now have this form that if I baked into Grasshopper, I have all of these extrusions and boxes, you know, creating an interesting, you know, tower that I can now start to, you know, manipulate this as well. Like I said, there's 1,000 ways you can start to manipulate this. And if I unhide everything, you'll see that everything is, you need to start from that surface and go all the way to create these different things, you know, and manipulate that shape and mold it into the thing you want it to be. So that's the first twisting, like I said, and this would, you could explode that, get all those surfaces off of that, start manipulating those surfaces, make panelize those surfaces, start to put things on that surface, all kinds of things you can do. But you need to start with kind of a basic shape, let's say. Any questions on that or this script? I know I'm running through this kind of quick. The other one's going to take a little bit longer. Any thoughts or questions on why I did or didn't do something in the script, or any thoughts?
So to get the Radians, I know you could also do a slider from 0 to 2 and put pi in. Is there any reason why you wouldn't want to do that?
No. You could definitely do that as well. It's just the way I did it.
Okay.
I can't think of a reason why. That's basically what this is doing. Like if I put a panel here, and plug this in, it is just taking whatever number I'm plugging into it. If I unplug this, it doesn't tell me whenever it's unplugged. But yeah, it's just converting whatever number I plug into that into radians. Like I said, I don't fully remember exactly what radians are. All I know is they're related to pi. But yeah, you could do it that way too.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I have a question too. So when I made mine 3D, I tried to extrude it on an angle to see if I could figure it out, and I didn't figure it out. But would you do it the same way you did with like the area, and like you'd have to pick the centroid, and like would you do it the same way if you wanted your like one singular extrusion to be on an angle?
When you say, let me just hide all this. When you say on an angle, do you mean this original extrusion on an angle?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
So yeah, you need to pick a different vector. So like your vector can't be, well, one, you could rotate this, but that's probably not what you want. There is, you can construct a vector, which, because, I don't know if you've ever in physics class, and you had, it was like, oh, the ball is, I'm just going to draw for a second. You throw the ball and it goes in an arc. But if you analyze the ball at this position, it has two vectors. It has a vector that's going this direction and one that's going up. And then in the middle is the actual piece. So it's a little bit of X and it's a little bit of Z, or a little bit of X and a little bit of Y. So what you would need to construct that other vector with these components, with this vector component. Whoops, come on, stop.
Okay, so I have to use that one and do the vector myself.
Yeah, so like if I grabbed it, if I took this vector and I added another, let's say I went X, see what happens. I don't know. I haven't done this, so we'll see what happens. We'll go a little rogue and see where we end up. Plug this into X, this into Z. And what happens if I plug that into here? I get that shape.
Okay, that makes sense.
So now I'm curious what happens. So the problem we're going to have, I'm interested to see what it looks like now. It's all broken. Oh, yeah, I didn't enable. Sorry, hold on. Enabled, preview. So I get this crazy looking shape. So what I would probably need to do, because if I go back to my line and unhide this, preview, my rotating point is still going straight up from that, from that centroid. So I'd actually, what might solve it is I'd have to plug this vector into here. Now let's see what happens. And I hide this one, preview. I get that shape. But you can see now that my line is not the right length, how it stops rotating after the line is done. So I'd actually have to increase the length of that line. Direction length. So I probably would plug a different dimension into here, and I can increase the length of that line maybe. I can get it to be more the full shape. Does that kind of answer roughly what you're looking for, Francesca?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. So in the thing about this, similar to your attractor point, there's nothing in other than these baked things, which I can delete. There's actually nothing in Rhino right now. So this purely lives in this world. It's broken at the end there, but it purely lives in this world of the code. And then once you get the shape you want, it you can bake it in if you want. So as I want to change, if I want to keep changing it, I can keep adjusting these sliders, getting it to be right where I want it to be, and it's still all of these things are still working. Obviously, you can break them and whatnot, but that's the the nice part about it staying in Grasshopper the whole time. So I'm just going to look at this as a whole so you can see, if anyone is watching on the video, you'll be able to see. So I'll just take out the what we had added in here, plug that back in. This will get us back to where we were originally, with one exception. This plugged in here, and I can delete this. So now I can, so let me just put this back full screen again so everyone can see. If you need to pause the video and take a peek at this to build it. If there's no questions, I'll move on to the second version, the second script we can take a peek at. I'm going to a new one. You can see everything disappears, nothing's in there. But if I was to go back and open that script, it would just pop right back into existence. So that's the fun part about Grasshopper. And it's maybe scary part too. So this one, we're going to try to create, kind of like let's call it a weird little pavilion space, a shell that we are lofting a skin and maybe putting in some quote unquote structure that is all parametric and can all speaks to each other. It could all be changed and adjusted. Nothing built inside of Rhino. Everything built inside of Grasshopper. So at least my concept, this is just me making this up. So the one I want to do is based off of a curve, right? So the first thing I'm going to put in here is a curve. I'm going to use just the arc command here. So you can see that the arc there, it places an arc automatically. There's obviously default settings, but I want this arc to be not on the plan view. I want it to be up on the side view. So I want to change all of these things, right? So my plane is automatically XY, but I want to add a different plane. So I'm going to go to vector, and this is where all the planes are. I'm going to put this on the YZ plane. So I can bring this in, and I can plug the plane into there, and you'll see that it flips the arc onto the YZ plane. I'm going to add a number slider for the radius so that I can adjust the radius of this, which just pulls it in, makes the radius larger. I'm not going to adjust the angle, but if you wanted to know what the angle does, this is also radians. We could use Earl's way or the way that I always do it. Both are valid, but this just tells me how far I want the arc to be along its length. So if I went to 360, and I went all the way, I would create a circle, and I can basically tell that arc to go wherever I want. But I'm not going to do that. 180 is exactly what I want for this condition, so I'm not going to plug anything in there. And that's what we're good to go. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to create 2 other arcs that are on the left and right of this. So this is going to be my high point of my, let's call it pavilion. And I'm going to use, I want one on the right side that's smaller and one on the left side that's smaller. Anybody have an idea of how we might accomplish that? No one? So how I want to accomplish that is I'm going to move this arc. I'm going to move it to the move one to the right and one to the left. So I'm going to use the move command, and I'm going to take this geometry, which is the arc, and I'm going to move it. But you can see that it automatically goes up. It just moves it directly up. Why does it move it up? Because the vector is automatically set to the z. So you can see when I hover over it, it says 0, 0, 10, meaning that if nothing's plugged in, it automatically moves it 10 units upwards. So I need to change that. And as we've learned before, we want to change the vector. What vector, if I want to move it left and right, does anybody know what vector I need to plug into here?
Is it y?
X.
X. X is the one we want to plug in. Y will move it along this green line. So if I took Y and I plugged it in, it moves it. It'll move it, forward and backwards. What I want is X. So I want to plug it into X. So I'm going to plug a factor in there so I can adjust it. And if I plug in, I can now move it in the Y direction. So if I wanted a second one, and I wanted the second one to be on the opposite side, and I wanted it to always be the same distance as this first one is, but the opposite direction. Anyone have an idea how we might achieve that?
Is there like an inverse or something?
Inverse?
Or like,
Maybe. I don't
know what it would be called.
Inverse transform. I've never used that command, so I'm not sure what that does. Nope. In transformation to inverse. Not sure what that command does. I actually have never used it before, but good thought. Anybody else?
We could scale it before we move it.
Scale it before we move it. What do you mean by that?
Well, maybe wait, I'm sorry. What are we looking to do?
Well, we do want to scale it eventually. That'll be the next step. What I want,
Okay.
what I'm looking to do is basically mirror the curve selected, the green curve. I want to mirror that on the opposite side, and I want it to be them always to be the same distance from this center curve.
Did you give it away then?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. So we can't use mirror.
I've actually never used a mirror curve, mirror an object. Let's see here. Let's see if we can mirror an object. So we plug a geometry up. There we go. So mirror works. I was actually going to do it a different way, but that works too. So we'll go that direction. Mirror. Learn something new every day. Earl's teaching us all kinds of stuff. Radians, mirrors. What I was thinking, another way that you could potentially do this, which is actually more complicated, Earl's way is better, what is to move this again. So now I have two objects that are moving, but instead of moving it this X vector, I can take this vector, I can plug it into a multiply math vector, and then I can set this item to -1. And if I plug this into here, I'm going to hide this for a second. It does the exact same thing as mirror. where it's basically moving it along. This is that geometry moved on a negative x vector, going the opposite direction. But Earl's way is a little cleaner. It's one node rather than two nodes. So I will unhide this. Maybe it'll screw me up later. I don't think it will. So I now have my two smaller arcs. But now, as Earl suggested before, I said I wanted to make them smaller, so I'm going to scale them. So I'm going to use the scale command. I'm going to take this geometry, and right now, I could take both of them and plug them into this same scale, and I could create a number slider that is a real number slider. I'll go to, I'll just keep it to 1s. I want it to be smaller than the original one. And you can see that it scales it in, its distance as well. So this distance here isn't necessarily, one-to-one accurate. If you wanted to, you'd have to throw some other nodes in to make sure that these were in the same location as that, basically find the center of these arcs, which we could do. Not going to go through all that right now, but you could create a surface, find the centroid and say the center of that scale, or, you could get a line here at the bottom and say the center of that line is the center of this scale. And that way it would shift it all the way out. I'm going to leave it like this for now, just because it makes it a little easier, or not easier, but it doesn't add all those nodes in, but you could do that. But the problem with this version, and we could try to do it, I'm not going to, is that both curves are in this same, you can see both arcs are in a list, which could be fine if we work on our list management. You could probably use them in a way that that's useful down the line. But I'm not going to go down. I'm not going to use that right now. I'm actually going to use two different scale nodes and plug one into one and one into the and leave one in the other. So they are both still there, but they are two different curves. So I can get, let me unplug this. So I can get the, this one, plug the geometry there. So I can, get the, let's call this the left curve, and I can get the right curve separately. So I'm just gonna put a note here. So if y'all should get in the habit of noting your definitions as you make them, so that way you remember where some of these things are, because this one will get, there was going to be a lot of stuff, and not a lot, but there'll be a bunch of things in this one later that it might be hard to find these. So I'm just going to make a note there and group those two nodes together so I can find them. So I have my large arc here and I have my small arcs here. I'm going to hide these ones so that I can just see the, I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to hide this so I can see the arcs that I have. I can scale them like so. I can move them like so, and I can scale these like so. Any questions so far? So now that I have my arcs, I want to create a surface using these three arcs. Anybody have an idea what tool I might use to create a surface that connects all of these? Loft, somebody said it. So I'm going to use the loft command, and I'm going to plug those curves in. So now, if I was to plug these curves, the order in which I plug these in matters, right? Similarly to how when you loft, when you select them, it matters. The order in which they get plugged into this command matters. So if I were to plug, let's say, this geometry in, and if I hold Shift, and you can see I have a green plus sign, meaning I can plug more than one thing into this curve. And I plug the second one in, I get a loft there. And then if I plug the third one in, you see that I get craziness. That's not necessarily what we want to do at this juncture. So I'm going to disconnect those, and I'm going to plug them in the order in which I want them to be lofted. So I'm going to go this one first, then the big arc, then the smaller one, and I now have a lofted shape over those three curves that moves with them and flexes as these flex, right? So I now have my surface. But what I actually want to do is I want this surface, I'm going to use these curves later to be part of my structure. So what I actually want to do is I want to move this surface outwards. I don't want it to be right on top of these lines. I actually want to move it outwards. So anybody have an idea how I might move it outwards? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to offset the surface. So there's an offset surface command. I believe it would probably be in here in utility surface, offset surface. Drop this in. I'm going to plug my surface into here, and you can see that it's already potentially doing something, but I need it to be I need the distance to increase. So I'm going to add a number slider in here as well. Like I said, these are all these number sliders. They could be dependent on, a dozen other things. They don't all have to be number sliders, but that's what we're, you could have they're just numbers, right? So you can plug, if you're getting data from somewhere, you can plug any number in there. So I'm gonna use a floating number. I'm gonna make this 3. And then I'm going to distance that. So now I can shift that surface out, offset it from that original surface, and kind of create my skin here. I'm gonna hide this original one so that I know that this one here is my actual surface. So I'm just gonna add a note here, scribble, and I'm gonna say skin. Put this here, group these together. So now I know where my skin is. All right, so perfect. Now I have my shell, and now we can start kind of building the structure. So what I want to do for the structure is I want to use my original curves, all my original arcs, and I want them to be I want to use them to start building the pieces of structure that support this, support this pavilion, let's call it. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a bunch of lines. I'm going to use these arcs to create lines that I can then make pipes out of. You can also use them to create sweeps or extrusions or other things out of. I'm just going to use pipes for now to show how you might start to do the structure, build the structure of something like this that is also parametric with the object itself. So the first thing I want to do is I need to create my support. Let's say, actually, let me think about it. There's a bunch of ways we can support this, or, if we wanted to. I'm trying to think of how I want to do it.
You could do a rib.
A what?
Like a ribs, and take the original bottom curve, I guess, and then array it along the curve.
Mm-hmm.
Along you can array that so that's like a rib, and you array it along this curve.
Mm-hmm. We could do that. Trying to think. We could try that. I'm going to try it my way first, or the way I was doing it, at least in my, when I was thinking it through how I might do it, and then we can give that a go, just so I don't go too far down a rabbit hole that I can't get myself out of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create kind of some vertical elements that branch up and create kind of let me see if I can draw something here. Let's see. I'm going to create let me change the color. I'm going to create maybe a line. I'm going to create some vertical elements along here, and maybe connect those vertical elements to something, to the top element. I could also, maybe connect them in some way this way or that way, creating some sort of, truss-like structure. That's how I'm going to give it a go for this round, and then maybe we can give Michael's a go. So how I would do that is I need to first create some lines here that I can, that are based off of all these curves. So I want to I just want to connect this bottom piece. I want to connect this dot, the end point of the curve here and the end point of the curve here. Anybody have an idea how I might connect those two endpoints?
Through a line.
Through a line, but I want to be able to find this point and this point on that curve. And how we do that is so hard for me to find these. Middle endpoints. So I can grab both of these curves, plug the geometry into there, copy paste, make another one, plug the geometry into there, and then I now have the endpoints of both of those curves, and I can create a line out of that with a start point and end point. And the benefit of doing it like this is that, like I said, it's all parametric. So as those curves change, these lines change. So now I have a line connecting those two elements, but I want to split this line similar to how we were doing the surfaces and some of you were putting your circles or polygons or squares on a surface. I want to make a division of this line. I want the division here to be equal with the division of the arcs here. I want them actually all to be equal. Anybody know how you might do that? We will divide them. So I can divide a curve similar to how you can create points on a surface. I can divide a curve into a series of points, right? So if I take this like so, and I have a slider, I can do a slider. I'm going to make this 20. I don't want too many points. And I can plug this slider into the count of both of these. And now I can say how many points are coming out of those lines. And then similarly, I can create two more of these. Like I said, I'm trying to keep all these curves separate so I can access all of these. I know which ones I'm accessing because I need to draw a bunch of lines. So now I have points along the curve, points along that curve, points at the bottom of that line, at the bottom of that line. I'm just going to organize these in space a little bit so that way the ones are together. And then as I adjust these, they all adjust. Similarly, I want to do that same. I want to do the same thing, and I want to add in the large arc so that the large arc has a similar amount of points. So now I have points across all of these. They're all the same amounts. And the reason why I want them to have the same amount is because I want to be able to draw lines between all of these points. And if there were different points or different amounts of points on the lines, then I wouldn't, it's harder to predict where the lines are going to go, right? So now that I have these lines, if I wanted to, I could start to create more lines. So really, we're just kind of going deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole. Oops. This one here. So I can connect those. I can connect these. And now I have a series of lines that are, all of them are the same, same amount. They're all being connected, and they all are parametric. They can adjust. I create my lines, and they're, all connecting. And then so now the other, we can start to do some other interesting things with this. So let's say I wanted to create kind of a line directly across connecting, this line here to this line here. And I wanted to decide, I wanted to, have it adjustable on where that connection happens. So there is a command in the, let's see, where might it be? Curve analysis. Point on curve. So this command, which has a little slider in it, and you can see that it starts at 0.5. This is actually a UV point, right? So it's telling, I guess it's a U point. So it's telling you, saying, create a point at this U point along this line. So if I were to plug this into here, you can see that it creates a point at the center line, that is at the midpoint of that line. And if I adjust this, it moves the lines in and out, in and out. I can do that same thing with this line here. And I have two lines that I can, or 2 points across these two that I can now start to manipulate. And if I wanted to, I could take that and create another line out of it. And as these slide, I can, slide them down this way. I can slide these up and down, and they are, adjustable to be wherever I want them to be. Oh man, it's hard to get them exactly where you want it. That's good enough. So now I have lines directly across. Now let's say, imagining if I wanted to, I could start to build some of this this structure as we go, so we can see what exactly we're trying to create. The pieces that we're creating. So if I create my pipe commands and I start to plug my curves into it. Oops, got that one. Need to plug this one in. Starting to get it's a little ridiculous. Obviously, we don't want it to be that big. So we can add a number slider here. I'm gonna make it 2. Plug the radius in there, and I can now adjust, maybe these are my main elements, my main pieces of structure. I could take this same connection, pull it over here, and start to disconnect. So I can plug in some of these other lines I'm starting to create, right? So I could say, I want to plug these lines in. I want that to be a piece of structure. Let me make this number slider here. I'll just make it 1. So they're smaller. You can see that I got some lines over there. I can plug in these lines, holding down Shift. I now have some lines that direction. I can just keep kind of going down this rabbit hole a little. Into there. I've now connected that across, so that all of these things shift as I shift these sliders around. And then I could even say, well, I want to create a point that connects the center of these up to this point. I want to have like a vertical member, or maybe I want to create a triangle of some kind. I want to go from this point to there and down. So all I need to do is find the points that I want to use to create that. So let's say I wanted to connect those points there to the top. I could create a line similarly. I'm just plugging this here. And I can plug that into here. And I could do the same for the other side. Where are we going? We're going to plug this into here. Oops, nope. Points. Where are we going? Let me disconnect this. I want to connect these to here. Similarly, I can add that to my structure, creating my weird little, structural skin. If I wanted to add a center one, you can keep going deeper and deeper into here. There's another version of this. I can just get the middle point of a curve. So if I grab that middle point, push it here, I could create a line from that point to the top and bisect that triangle, pull this out, add this to that mix, and start to get all kinds of fun stuff. So then if I hide, turn off the preview for all of this, you can see that I now have this interesting shell shape that I can pull all these sliders. So I could say, oh, my skin isn't as connected as I want it to be right now. So I could come in here, find it's usually good to, if you have sliders that you are going to be using or manipulating a lot, I could say, this is name them and say skin offset. I can group these two together. And then I could even start to kind of collect all my sliders in a spot, right? So which one is this? This is this moves the arc out. So, I could call this, well, I could also name them. I could go into number slider and say adjust arc offset. And put all my sliders, in one spot that I know that I'm gonna manipulate. But like I said, the benefit of this is if I wanted to, I could take all of my bakeable items, pull these out. Where's my bigger pipe? Here we go. I could say, add a scribble here. Bake. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Bake. I can group all those together. And then I could come in and I could say, I want to bake my surface on layer 1. I'm going to bake this onto layer 2. Bake this onto layer 3. And I can then come in here and say, okay, well, this is one version of this skin with all of those different points. Maybe that's a little too many, maybe I don't like so much structure. So I can come back in and I can say, I want to adjust how many elements of structure I have. So I can pull this down to, some other place, say there-ish. And then I could rebake that again if I wanted to. I could come back in and I could say, or it also could be, I want to adjust the scale of the arc. I want to move it. I want to make the other arc bigger. I want to scale, probably scale this up a little bit, or scale it down. It's getting a little weird. I could scale this back. I could change my skin offset, my arc offset, make it a little more rotund. I can, so these things are all adjustable, and you can kind of, I want these to be a little, I want them to be on an angle. You can start to kind of play with the design of this a little bit rather than having to adjust all of the, remodel things, or you can kind of play with different iterations of these things, and play and adjust them, and they're all dynamic and move together. Oops. So I can, some interesting things can come out of that. I can then, the next level. So this might be just level 1 of this model. And it's like, okay, this is just the base level. And I may have a whole other script. It could be inside of this script or even a different one where I come back in and I do some sort of panelization over this roof structure and kind of manipulate that. I know that'll be kind of like the next level of things that we start to look at. But, this is how you might start to create, not necessarily this, but, you can create the base level items for your projects or use, oops. Let me minimize this for a second. Use Grasshopper to create these things. Any questions or concerns about that? We could try to do, Michael, if you had an idea, if you had a thought of how to do your version of this, we can give that a go as well. But no promises. I'm sure we can. I think I would know what we would need to do, but.
Is it easy to take all the code you just did and make a custom block out of it that you can drop into other code?
Custom. I assume you could make custom
or whatever you want.
Sorry, say it again.
Definitely.
Okay. The problem with this potentially is that we have a lot of number sliders, right? So
okay.
the custom, could you create custom node and that does this? Yes, but it's going to have 15 inputs.
Right.
It's going to have a skin offset of this or that or the other, which is fine. But you just need to make sure. I'm not super adept at creating the custom blocks and whatnot, but I'm sure it could be done. Any other questions? We can give Michael's idea a go and see how far we get on that, and see if we can problem solve that together. So did you have an idea on how you might create that, Michael, or how we might start creating that?
I was just thinking like we can take the one curve that's already there at the bottom and then use the array along a curve. I don't know if that's a tool in Grasshopper, but I know it's a tool in Rhino, so maybe
it's a tool in Rhino, it's a tool in Grasshopper. Anything that's in Rhino that you can do it in Grasshopper in some way or another. So I just wanted to show this full thing. Keep in mind, this is a pretty sloppy layout. I would say, going back through your scripts and organizing them a little better than this would probably behoove you at some point, because they're going to get a little unruly as they get larger and larger and larger. So make sure you label things, organize them, group them together. The benefit of a group is it's easy to move, and the label can move. If it's grouped the label in there, it can move with the label. So yeah, let's give Michael's a go. So let me go back to, let's see here. I want to get back to somewhere around here. So let me delete out that. Nope, that's not what I wanted. I want to keep the skin. Delete that. I'm going to delete the pipe. So we're back to where we were with just the skin and the arcs. So Michael wants to do is basically, correct me if I'm wrong, you want to take this arc here and you want to array it along here to kind of create a rib system that goes around the skin. So what is the first thing you think we might need to do? What do we need to get to start that process?
We need the curve, and then I guess the two. We need to make sure we have the two curves, I guess, and then plug them into the array align the curve, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, 100%. The first thing we need to do is get the curve that we're going to array, because we already have we already have the small curves, we have the big curve. So whichever one we want to array along, we should be able to do that. But we need to get this, curve right here first. So there is an edges. That's a surface. I want to get the edge. What's that?
Is it dupe edge? Is that what?
I don't know if dupe edge is a tool inside. I mean, I know a dupe edge is a tool in Rhino, but it exists, but it's just not in the same way. So what I was thinking was grabbing the edge from a face.
Okay, so that's kind of like the same.
Yeah. So let me see here. Points for face coincidence check. I don't think that's what I want though. Maybe let me see here. There's another analysis. Reconstruct. What is actually coming out of this panel? So that's a surface. Utility. Offset surface, edges from faces. Select all B rep. So it's not a B rep. Empty point. Points for face coincidence check. So what happens when I plug in my okay, so there we go. I had to pick a point to start from. So I now have all the edges here. They are all popping out of this. And so you can see they're all in a list. So we need to figure out which one we want to grab. So we talked about lists before. Do we know how we can grab? It's probably one of these arc curves, or maybe it's one of the planar curves. Anybody have an idea how we might grab one of these from the lists? We're going to use the list item at index. List. That's not what I want. I want the list item index, list item, retrieve a specific item from a list. So we have our list here. I want to grab this list into there. There are 4 items in this list, so I'm just going to create a number slider that is 4 long, so we can cycle through and see which one we want to grab. Plug this in. So now why can't I see it? Let me preview. What's coming out here, bub? Maybe I can put a curve parameter here so we can grab the, that's not a curve. What are they? Arc-like curve. Can't see which one's which. Once. Preview. Can't figure out which one I'm grabbing here. What? Oh, yeah. Maybe I could do. this. Just trying to figure out which curve I'm grabbing. It's not showing, it's not displaying it. It's not working either. Let me plug, get rid of this one again. One locally defined arc-like curve. Maybe it's It's not actually making them edges. How do we get that curve? It's not popping it out the way I wanted it to pop it out. Okay, let's see, what else can we do to grab it? See, this is part of the fun of Grasshopper. How might we get that curve? Let me see what kind of tools we got here. Beam rep edges. This is what we. Oh, this might be the way we want to do it. Maybe I grabbed the wrong edge command. But okay, now we're getting closer. Maybe. Might be the same. Okay, so now I might be able to do the list. So I think what I was grabbing, what I ended up grabbing before was kind of just the text of what we were grabbing, and not an actual curve. So, oops, I grabbed the wrong list. List item index. Oops, grabbed it again. I want to be able to pick the index. So if I plug this into here and get my number slider back with 4, since we have 4 items. Okay, let's try this again. Plug this in. There we go. So you can see now if I select 1, that's 1. I select 2, 3, 4. So 4 or 0 is what we want here. Or we could do 3, I guess, if we wanted to circle from that way. So the item I was grabbing before was not converting it into a curve. This node grabbed the edge, and I was able to make it into a curve here. So I brought the naked edge curves. This is actually a curve. I probably could just plug this directly into here, and it would work the same way. This is making it a curve before it wasn't making it into a curve. So now we got that, I will turn this to 0 so we can grab that curve. So now we want to try to array along a curve, right? So let's see here. We want to array, create a geometry along a curve, linear array, polar array. So we may want to create a polar array because the linear array, I don't think, or the curve array is going to keep this same orientation and just array it, in that same orientation. A polar array is going to allow us to rotate that along an axis. So if I grab the polar array, I can plug my geometry in, but obviously I'm not going in the right direction, right? So first and foremost, we need to change our plane. Anybody have an idea of what plane we might want to go in? Did I lose everybody?
No, you didn't lose it. Probably XY plane, maybe?
XY plane? Well, XY plane is what it's
Or-
already in.
Oh, then never mind.
So if I go back to
It's
plane.
a Z. Probably has to have Z then.
Yeah, so it's either XZ or YZ. It's going to be YZ. At least I think it's YZ. So now we got something there. Getting closer. It's arraying it in the way we want. It's going in a full circle. So what might we want to do to not make it go in a full circle?
Change the count, maybe? Or no, that would change how many there are.
We might still want to do that too. You know, I can add a number slider to change the count. Maybe make it 25 or something. And if I plug that in, it's just going to change the amount of them that go around. So the only thing left is the angle. So we need to tell it that we don't want it to go we don't want it to go 360 degrees. We want it to go 180 degrees. So I'm just going to keep doing it my old way, no matter what Earl says. And so I make this maximum 180, plug it in here, get my degrees, plug it in here, and ta-da, I now have, I can change it back, I can accordion all the way back, or I could keep it all the way across. I can change it to be, to have a few or a bunch. And similarly, if I wanted to, I could pipe all of these like so. And I could even pipe these small arcs in there as well. So that I had, and maybe if you wanted to, oh, did I get the other one? Yeah, I could do a large arc to have a middle one. And if I hid the skin, and the other skin, where's the other skin at? Oh, this one. Preview. Still got one somewhere. Preview. There we go. So now I have this shape, but you can see I don't have this last one. So it's not going all the, 180 is taking it, right to the last one. So what I might want to do, what I could do, is I could copy this, shift it to this guy here, and then plug that one into here as well to get that last curve. So I can get my shell. And of course, I can still manipulate all of this, I can go all the way back to the beginning. I could change this and make it scale it up. I could scale those up and down. Everything is flexing the way I want it to. I could adjust this arc offset. If I wanted to add other curves, you could do the same thing we just did, but along the other direction, and get, ribs or create, arcs. I could maybe create a series of arcs between these two that I could get other ribs in there as well, like these, all kinds of stuff you start to play with, right? So any other questions or thoughts about these or things you want to test out? Questions? Do we all feel like we could make this ourselves? Well, you're all gonna make something, not much more complicated than this, I would imagine, before the end of the semester's out. So, okay, if there's no questions, let me just, I can, oops, zoom in on this so we can see it. So everyone who's watching at home, they can pause the video and take a look at this, and so they can make sure they have all the nodes to recreate it. All right. If there aren't any questions, then I will stop recording. Let me just go here. I'm gonna stop